It's time once again for Talking Bible with the Brandons, the only podcast that proves a Tennessee fan and an Alabama fan can get along. Here's your host, Pastors Brandon Pugh and Brandon Carter.
Well, all right, here we are once again at Bethel, and we are in a new book of the Bible. I'm excited about this. I was just talking to Brandon about this. I'm a big historical narrative fan. I just love the juicy, rich details that we find in these narratives here. Brandon,
Stories.
Right. Brandon said that it's because I like taking so many things out of context for my own devices there. But I don't think that's the reason why. I think I'm just a fan of stories.
I think everybody is.
Yeah, I think, if you think about it, that's really kind of the way that God has disseminated his word. This originally didn't come out in written form.
Right.
It was really kind of passed down in an oral tradition. And, you can imagine kind of the very beginnings of the Bible and how it all started. It's like, the elders of the town had everyone gathered around the campfire, and they were like, let me tell you about whenever King David passed away here, kids. Come on, let me tell you about what he told his son here,
Right.
some fatherly advice here. And this is what he said to him.
Yes.
So
Most cultures were. They were all oral.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, well, today what we're getting into here is really a passing of the torch here. We see just not only a new book of the Bible, but really a new book in the life of the nation of Israel here. A new king is crowned here. Solomon's reign is now established. Solomon's not David's oldest, is he?
No. No.
Yeah, so we'll get into maybe a little controversy here kind of moving forward, but lots of cool stuff to see here, Brandon. What were just kind of your initial thoughts here, just reading through?
Well, the book of 1 Kings, 2 Kings is just basically what it says. It's the story of the kings of Israel after basically David establishes the throne. And then after him comes his successors. Of course, there's the dividing of the kingdom and so forth. And so you're going to have two different kings. But it's just chronicling that story about these kings and what they did. And it's not always a good story, that's for sure. 1 Kings 2 is this transition from David to Solomon as he hands off the throne, passes the baton to his son. It's what stands out to me is how it wasn't a peaceful transition. There's a lot of bloodshed in this, which is typical. It's not unusual, but it stands in stark contrast to me to David's transition. There was a little bit of challenge there with David, but not like Solomon, at least not the detail given here. And so I thought it was an interesting detail that, Solomon takes the throne and people got to die. There's going to be some shedding of blood. And David took the throne. It was a little more peaceful. And I don't know if that's kind of the
Lord's anointed.
An omen of things to come, foreshadowing. I don't know. It just doesn't start off as well. It's not going to end as well either. So I just thought that was an interesting detail of the text. It's almost kind of like made me think about without the shedding of blood, there can be no forgiveness of sins. It's almost like without the shedding of blood, there could be no transferring of the kingdom.
All right.
And Jesus' kingdom in some way is transferred through the shedding of his blood for us. But it's kind of I don't know that that's necessarily the point of the text.
You're telling me I'm the one that takes stuff out of
no,
context.
I'm just thinking about it. I was just thinking about that as I read it. But what did you come up with? I think, you picked out a good verse.
Well, yeah, I mean, so in spite of, kind of the rocky start, that we see that you're talking about there, we see a good word of advice here from David, the father of Solomon, just kind of giving him, a little pep talk before he, takes command there and becomes the new king of Israel before he dies there. And I love what he says here. So I guess, the verses I highlighted today are really just kind of 1 through 4. So it says, when David's time to die drew near, He commanded Solomon his son, saying, "I am about to go the way of all the earth." So he's about to die, just like everyone else here. And here's what he says to him. Here's his words of advice here, really commands. He says, "Be strong and show yourself a man." That's what he just kind of comes right out of the gate with there. Mm-hmm. So you wonder, okay, well, what does that look like? Because a lot of people, being a man looks like a lot of different things there. Maybe it's like you need to be stronger than everyone else, or you need to
physically
be
stronger.
Right. You need to be successful, or you need to have money, or you need to put food on the table, or you need to be more athletic, or you need to objectify women. All of these things, that's what being a man is. But for David, a man after God's own heart, I think he rightfully defines what being a man is right here. And what follows is in verse 3, keep the charge of the Lord your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his rules, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that you may prosper in all that you do, wherever you turn, that the Lord may establish his word that he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons pay close attention to their way, to walk before me in faithfulness with all their heart and with all their soul, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel there. So what is being a man? It's living your life for the Lord, basically. Right. Just to the best of your ability. Now, certainly we all fall short of that standard, but nevertheless, that's the charge and that's the command. And I was telling Brandon, one of the things that was kind of most evident for me, just a big, standing in stark contrast to how I previously lived my life, is I understood that being a man is not necessarily making much of my own power, but making much of the Lord's power, and not doing what other people do and not following the crowd, but doing the right thing, even whenever it's difficult, especially whenever it's difficult. And that certainly applies to living your life for God.
Obedience to the Lord, is a manly thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say, you said, manhood is not all about physical strength and putting food on the table, but do you think there is an element of manhood that says obedience to the Lord looks like protecting my family, my community, protecting the people of God, and providing for my family?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's part of it. So, if you're living your life for the Lord, you're going to do those things, but that's not all it is.
You're going to try to do those things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the Bible says that that a man that doesn't provide for his family is worse than an unbeliever. So the idea there is God has created men. This is a very manly episode, by the way, so sorry about that, ladies, there. But God has created men differently in a way. Yes, we are larger, but that's not to offend women. That's to defend women, to defend those who are weak and cannot defend themselves. You talk about raising the sword and fighting the good fight. That's part of it as well. Good men stand by and do nothing. That's when evil prospers. So, yeah, I think that God creates us in that way for those things, and certainly, yes, to provide. Adam's first obligation was to work and to keep the garden.
Right. Yep.
And you're not being a man if you're not working and keeping the garden to some capacity.
Right. As best as you can.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you would say, like, if it's the Great Depression, for example.
Sure.
And you're a man.
You do what you got to do.
Maybe that may have looked for you like standing in a line at a soup kitchen trying to get food for your family.
Sure.
Because there was no work to be found.
Sure, or that's not to diminish those who maybe are disabled or something like that. There.
Yeah.
If you are able, then you need to do what it is that God has made you to do, and that's to provide for those and to take care of those who cannot do it for themselves.
Yeah, that's manhood. It's kind of like I heard someone say the glad assumption of responsibility. You gladly take on responsibility for other people to protect, to provide, to nourish them spiritually, physically, all of these things, is included in what it means to be a man. And it's not in any way meant to demean women.
Nope.
Or, they're inferior, in fact, in Proverbs 31, the godly noble woman is also a helper partner with you who will help you do those things as well. She will help protect your kids. She will help provide for your family and, take care of the needs. She's not passively sitting by doing nothing. So she's a partner with you, a helper with you to do those things. And so, but yeah, manhood looks like that. And I think that's why for a lot of people today, manhood is confusing and at times it can it's fallen on hard times, I guess you could say. If you're not doing those things, I think sometimes you feel at a loss.
Right.
That's why, Jordan Peterson is not a Christian, but he's kind of tapped into something among culture, and especially with young men, because he's preaching these things and telling men, young men, that you ought to be working, you ought to be doing these things and taking responsibility for yourself and for others. And it's like men hear him speak and talk about this, and it's almost like the lights come on.
Well, yeah.
And it's like, I know what I'm made for now.
Right.
Well, yeah.
And the reason why that gets so much traction and that's so appealing, even to unbelievers, is because God has made every man within him with that desire, and it's innate. It's part of being made in the image of God.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And when you don't do it, you're out of loss. You're kind of out of kilter,
Yeah.
So
Yep. Every young man wants a battle to fight and a dragon to slay and, a princess to rescue. And that's just, we see that, all throughout stories, littering throughout the ages there. And there's a reason why those kinds of narratives have so much popularity. I mean, it's because there's truth within them.
yeah. The other day, one of my kids had the machete and were clearing brush in the back of chopping down some of the privet hedge and the brush back there, and there was a little possum sitting in the grass, they had uncovered, and like one of their reaction was like, can I kill it? Can I take this machete? I'm like, what is wrong with you?
For what reason?
Yeah, it's like, so we just
are we lacking for possum on the table?
we just
here?
don't kill for the sport of it. But at the same time, I mean, I can remember being a boy growing up, there might be a bird in a tree and I had my BB gun.
Right.
And I'm taking it down.
You wanted to execute dominion.
Yeah, that's just something I think for a lot of boys, it's like just that there's bound in them, in their heart to do that kind of thing. It's like I'm killing, and slaying something, or I'm fighting, and you've got to channel that.
That's
You've got it.
That's why it was good for him to have his father with him there in the same way that Solomon had Dad here to channel that and to fine tune that and to hone those.
If that had been a copperhead, son, we'll go ahead and kill that.
We'll take
Just
that.
let it live,
Well, all right. Well, guys, I think that's probably all about the time we've got today. Anything else, Brandon, on this? Or
1 Kings 3 and 1 Kings 6 tomorrow.
All right, guys. We'll see y'all then.
Thanks for listening to the Bible with the Brandons. Be sure to like our page on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search for Bethel Baptist RC. You can also get updates at our website at www.bethelnow.net. Thanks again for listening.